Hello guys, it's Eli or Elias with you guys today. We will be discussing Programming Homework 6 for Computer Science. Today we have 3 problems, all labs from Zybooks. The first problem is 11.8 lab artwork label. The second one is to guess the random number, and the third one is to make a quadratic function, or you do a quadratic formula. So we'll jump right in. I think you guys can still see my screen. Yes. Okay. So we'll start with guess the random number. Or actually, we'll start with the artwork label. We were told to have an input of the artist birth year, the artist death year. If he's still alive, it would be -1. Then the title of his art and the year it was published. So all that is in here. I just pretty much summarized it. And it's supposed to give us an output of something like this. So if we put input this, the output would be this. Pretty straightforward. We'll get into the coding here in a second after I review our other 2 problems, so that way we get just straight into it. Our second problem was 11.9 lab, which was guess the random number. Practically, we have a number generator that generates a number between 1 and 100, and we are allowed an input of 4 guesses. So these are the guesses given right here. So with the seed given, they told us to have the seed value of 900. That if we give these numbers, one of these would be correct, and 48 is correct. But it goes looping through to see if one of our input is correct. It splits our input, since this is all on one line. It would split it into different tokens. So this would be token 1, token 2, token 3, token 4. And then compares each token to the number generated, and then pops a message if it's too low, if it's too high, if it's correct, so on and so forth. So this one I think would be pretty easy to code. And then our last one was lab 11.10, which is practically building a form, or putting the quadratic formula into a program and making the program run it for you and giving you the output of x1 and x2, where x1 is this and x2 is this. So it's pretty straightforward. We'll hop right into it. I'll go over to PyCharm where I coded this. So we're looking at the first problem, which is the one where we have to create a label for the artwork. So I have different modules. I have the main module, which will import artist and artwork. Artist will simply be for collecting the artist name, the birth year, and the death year, and then formatting it. And then the artwork would be for catching the artwork name and the year it was created and formatting it right here, which will later be put over here in the main. So in the main, we have various inputs that we need to get from the user. So we have user artist name, user birth, death year, title, year created, so on and so forth. It then calls the class of artist right here. Then it calls the class of artwork right here for these inputs right here. And it will print the info, which is the label we want to make. So I'll go ahead and run this. So artist name, I'll use the same as they give us over here. I'm gonna pull them up really quick. Boom. So I'm hoping you guys can still see this. Yes, it kind of windowed down just because I split my screen really quick, but in order to see, it wants us to use the name Pablo Picasso. Year of birth was 1881. The year of death is 1973. The title of his art, 3 musicians. And the year it was created was 1921. And after I hit enter, it should print out a label for what this is, or for Pablo Picasso from 1881 to 1973. Right underneath it, the title of his art and the year it was created. So I'll go ahead and click enter. And sure enough, here it is. Artist, Pablo Picasso, 1881 to 1973. Title, The 3 Musicians, 1921. So it seems to be working well. And with that, we'll go over to our second one, which was guess the random number. So in guess the random number, we imported this random module in order to generate random numbers. So we did a random.randint to get only whole values from 1 to 100. So our num, which will be the variable holding our random number, is going to hold a random number between 1 and 100. And guess number is going to be the number we guess, which is going to be split into tokens. You will see down here. So like I said, it goes by, and if it's greater, if our number guess is greater than the random number, then it'll print this. If our guess number is less than our random number, it'll print this. But if our guess number is equal to our random number, then it'll say correct. So we accept user input, and before that, we set the seed, random.seed, to 900, so that way we can get the same thing as what it's asking, that one of these numbers that we guess is going to be correct. So user input will be the user input your 4 guesses in one line. It will then split them into tokens, so if we guess 4 numbers, it'll split those 4 numbers into tokens, which will be technically an array that will hold our numbers. So for token and tokens, it will run number equals int token, and it will input that number into our formula which we created up here, or our function which we created up here. So I'll go ahead and run this and use numbers given to us. Input guesses, so take you guys back to my other screen, and the guesses given to us were 32, 45, 48, and 80. I'll jump back to PyCharm and input those numbers. So there you go, 32, 45, 48, and 80. I hit enter, and in Zybooks it says that 48 is the correct, so hopefully with a seed and our code, 48 will be the correct number as well. So sure enough, 48 is correct right here, as we can see. So this code seems to be working fine. I'll hop on over to our last one, which was the quadratic formula, and I'll kind of go over it, which I'm familiar with the quadratic formula. I don't know if you are, but I'll show it to you guys really quick, or really briefly. So the quadratic formula is right over here. It has x of 1, which is when you plus, and then x of 2 is when you subtract what is behind this. So negative b plus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And then the other one's negative b minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So what I did for simplicity is I broke this quadratic formula into different parts, which will, I think, help the user, or at least maybe help the computer. I don't know if the computer could run it all together. It probably could, but I just split it into parts just to make it easier on myself. So part 1, I just took the first part of the quadratic formula. We know that the first part is going to be negative b, either plus or minus what follows, right? And that will be later on. So our second part, which is it's inside the square root, which is b squared, is the first part, minus 4ac, which you see here as part 3. But part 2, I did 4. This is the squared, 4, or b squared. I didn't want to use math.square, since I could simply use this without typing too much stuff. That's just me being lazy, but you can use math.square and then just put b there. So part 3, like I said, is that 4 times AC, or 4AC. And then part 4 is the math square root of what this would be, part 2 minus part 3, which is that b squared minus 4AC. So gave it right here, used the math, which we imported up here. Part 5 is simply putting it together. So part 5 is the top portion of the quadratic formula, which is negative b plus the square root, which is right here, square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then which will practically be x1 after we divide it by 2a, which will come down here. But part 6 is much similar to part 5, but remember we have a plus and then we have a minus. So this one's the negative b minus the square root of 2 or b squared minus 4ac. Finally, we come down here and we actually assign it, put the parts together to compute easier. So x1 equals part 5, which I just explained, divided by 2 times a, which will complete our quadratic formula, and then x2 is the same thing but subtracting, and also dividing by 2 times a. So these will be a, b, and c will be inputted right down here. So we see here input line right here, input give 3 values of variables a, b, and c. So once I run it, it'll pop this up and we will have to type it in separated by spaces. So right here, split line, it separates our a, b, and c into different little tokens. It gives variable a what is our first number, variable b our second number, and variable c our first number, second number, and our third number, which is c. So then we'll run it'll assign the variable solution, the quadratic formula function with our inputs, and it'll print and format our inputs to make them look nicer. So we'll go ahead and run this code really quick. So give the 3 values of variables a, b, and c. I'll hop right on over and show you guys what they used over here so we can kind of compare. So we were given a equals 2, b equals -3, and c equals -77, and it should give us this output. I'll come back to that screen, but I'll go ahead and input that in my code. So I'll type this in, and sure enough, the solution to format A, format B. So the solution to 2x squared plus minus 3x plus -77 equals 0. So that might be a little wrong, but our answer, x equals 7, x2 equals -5.5, is the same as we see over here. I'll go ahead and split screen so you guys can see both my screens. So boom, there. I think that looks better. Yep. I'll show you one, or maybe you guys can see right there, but let me see if this makes it better. Okay, as we see here, that x1 equals 7, x2 equals -5.50, we got that, and this matches what we have over here. Same exact thing, so x1 equals 7, x2 equals -5.50. So far so good, our code is running great. We finished all 3 questions, and without further ado, I'm going to end this recording. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer as quickly as possible. Thank you again. Goodbye.